Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell. You'll get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And when I'm not asking Bruce, hey, how big was Batista's? Well, you know. One of the things I like to do is help people save money. And if you're watching this video right now and you're in a 30-year loan, man, you're overpaying your single biggest bill and you may not even realize it. I want you to do a little experiment for me. Take your calculator out, multiply your monthly house payment by 360 payments. That's how many payments there are in a 30-year loan. That big scary number, that's your total of payments. You're looking at that number? You know you can do better. Keep more of your own money right now and go to savewithconrad.com. Or maybe you've got credit card debt. Man, it's not a matter of if I can save you money with that. Your average interest rate on a credit card is more than 20%. And by the way, all the interest you pay on those credit cards, it's not tax deductible. Whereas the mortgage interest, well, that is tax deductible. So if you owe this debt, it's up to you how to pay it back. Doesn't it make sense to get the cheapest rate possible and the greatest tax deduction possible? Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. Even scores in the 500s can be approved, and it's no cost out of pocket. But maybe best of all, we're licensed in more than 40 states. We can help more families than ever before. But how much can we save you? Find out right now for free with a quick quote from savewithconrad.com.
Welcome back, everybody, to Something to Wrestle with Bruce Prichard. I am Bruce Prichard.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Something to Wrestle with Bruce Prichard. What's going on, boys and girls? We appreciate you being with us today. Of course, you were probably expecting something a little different. Usually this is when I throw to Bruce. We would start talking about In Your House 4. But that is not going to happen today. Unfortunately, I'm the bearer of bad news. A tragedy has befell the Prichard family. Bruce's wife of, over 24 years now, just lost her father. So as a result of that real life personal situation, that's a challenge to the entire Prichard family. We were unable to record a brand new Something to Wrestle this week, but we do have a plan to record In Your House 4 tomorrow. So let's all knock on wood, because we know plans change, pal. But the plan is for us to put In Your House 4 in the can, and I'm so excited to talk about it. I love talking about 1995 WWF and hearing about J.J. Dillon and Lisa Wolf and how tough things were for the company as Vince looks for his next hit. It's just fun to go back and relive some of those dark times for the company. Next week, we're hoping to do Taboo Tuesday 2005 on the 15-year anniversary. And don't forget, the month of November is loaded. We're hoping to do King Kong Bundy on the 6th, Eddie Guerrero on the 13th, which is unfortunately the 15-year anniversary of his passing. We've had this one in the works for quite a while. November 20th, we hope to be back with you with Survivor Series 1995. And of course, on the 27th, we're going to do Survivor Series 2005, which is, well, a much different show. Today is going to be a much different show as well. Believe it or not, we've actually dug through the archives and we found some of the original Something to Wrestle with Bruce Prichard episodes. No, not 2016. Way back before I even knew Bruce. He's, just freshly departed WWE, and he's been sold on the idea of doing a podcast. So he does his best, but it's not exactly what you're going to grow into here with Something to Wrestle. We've had a lot of fun building this show with you guys over the years, and we hope that you're digging what we're doing. But I thought today, since we couldn't pin Bruce down, and by the way, thoughts and prayers with Stephanie Prichard, her whole family, and of course, Bruce's kids lost their grandpa. I mean, it's a bad deal. So I know that's got to be tough, but we wanted to try to entertain you, because maybe you at home have a tough situation right now that you're looking for a distraction from. And that's what we're here for. We want to try to make you laugh, and hopefully this very primitive look at Something to Wrestle will make you chuckle. Oh, I do want to mention real quick, we've got so much fun stuff happening over at adfreeshows.com. I don't know if you guys saw or not, but we just announced the X-Ray show with Dr. Tom Prichard. We've got the first 4 episodes in the can now. They're in post-production, and we're going to launch them over at adfreeshows.com, where you actually watch some of your favorite matches, but you see it through the eyes of a wrestler. Dr. Tom is going to walk through and explain why that was one of your favorite matches. What did they do that really worked, that resonated with you? And maybe he'll even look at some matches where it didn't work. We've also announced Monday Mailbag with Mike Chioda. And of course, Gerald Briscoe will be joining us for a Monday Mailbag as well. I don't think it's out there yet. I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now, we're shooting a championship belt series, and I'm excited for you to see what episode 1 is. But that is being filmed right now as I'm talking to you. We've also got some new artwork coming your way every week over at Ad Free Shows from our pal Doug Holliday. And, well, the collection series, I think, is what's got everybody abuzz the most. We get lots of questions about, old ring use stuff and memorabilia and where it wound up and what collections look like. So we're taking a look at that right now over at adfreeshows.com. And of course, I think everybody by now has heard about Eric Fires Back. We're doing another one of those this weekend. And I think even JR is getting in on the action. Arn Anderson this weekend is going to sit down and take a look at the horrific Chamber of Horrors match from 1991, where they electrocuted Abdul the Butcher. Oh my gosh. Who booked this? We've also got the new idea, the AFS book club. And the first book is Bill Apter's, and you'll get to pick his brain and ask questions about the book. And I think next month we're doing that new Andre the Giant book that everybody's been talking about. So lots of fun stuff there. But I got to tell you, I think the thing that people are most excited about right now is the new happy hour shows. That's like a real thing, man. You get to do a little happy hour on Sunday afternoons or Sunday evenings with Medusa or Rebel, who we have all fallen in love with, on Wednesday nights. There's so much fun stuff happening over at adfreeshows.com. I didn't get to all the announcements. There's a whole lot more coming, including 2 really, really big announcements. I did a big road trip this week. I was in the car for 14 hours to get this done. But we're pretty excited and, hope we can make that announcement in the next week or so. And I hope to see you later this weekend when we, sit down and catch up with Bruce about In Your House 4. This episode is happening, boys and girls, but hopefully everyone's a little sympathetic to the personal family situation that the Prichards have right now. Without further ado though, let's see if our man Bruce can entertain us without me. From way back when there was a Something to Wrestle without Conrad Thompson. I just referred to myself in third person. That was weird. Here we go.
Welcome back, everybody, to Something to Wrestle with Bruce Prichard. I am Bruce Prichard, and this week we're going to discuss a host of topics from the Monday Night Wrestling Wars between Monday Night Raw, the WWE, and TNA's Impact on the Spike Network. All that taking place this past Monday, and we're going to discuss the cause, the effect, and what people are talking about in the industry. In addition to that, we'll talk about the new matches made for WrestleMania coming up, and give you a little insight as to what I think Vince McMahon is thinking right now with all the competition that is coming at him right now, with everything that's coming up, the big shows, and the big dogs coming at him again. And it's the first time that Vince has had competition in quite a while, and I was there with Vince for 22 years, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. I'm also going to talk about the comedy shows that took place this past week, myself and Mick Foley up in Manchester, New Hampshire. That was a lot of fun, so stick with me. And John called me after listening to my first show. John really got on me a little bit. John told me that, he goes, Bruce, I listened to the show, and the show was good, but it sounded like you were, being nice. And John went on to tell me that being nice wasn't one of my more natural traits. He said, come on, man. He says, that's not you talking. And I thought about it. And the more I thought about it, the more that I have tried to toe a company line almost in some of the things that I've said and some of my comments. So, hey, man, we're going to try and cut through a lot of that as we get into this week's topics. And I think the main topic on everybody's mind is got to be the Monday Night Wars. Now, over on USA, you have the stalwarts. You have WWE Monday Night Raw. That's been on forever, ever since, we came up with that concept in Vince's backyard in Greenwich, Connecticut. And the funny thing about it is the the original concept for Monday Night Raw was to do a live event show that could actually save the company money. Because at the time, we were doing primetime wrestling on Monday nights, and we were flying in a lot of different talent. It was affecting the live event shows, and it cost so much money that show almost became cost prohibitive. And came up with the idea to have a live show, record it, and play it on Monday nights. In addition, we would go out and get stars from the past, spotlight them on the show, and that was the show. The working title for weeks and weeks was, well, it's just going to be a Raw show, Raw. And one day, lo and behold, one of the marketing geniuses came in and says, I know, we'll call it Raw. Yeah, they're really geniuses. Not really. But anyway, Monday Night Raw against Spike TV, Spike Network, and TNA and their television show, TNA Impact. Now, TNA Impact got a big boost recently with the signing of the immortal Hulk Hogan. Along with that, you've got Eric Bischoff behind the scenes and on camera, kind of pulling the strings and helping run the organization with its owner, Dixie Carter, along with founder Jeff Jarrett. Now, again, no one really knows exactly, who's in control, who's completely in charge there. But nonetheless, it's created some very interesting dynamics. Because on the coattails of Hulk Hogan arriving in TNA, you've seen some of the regulars that kind of follow Hulk around from place to place. We've seen the Nasty Boys showing up. You've seen Jimmy Hart show up. You've seen Scott Hall, the 1-2-3 Kid, X-Pac, 6-Pac, 4-Pac, whatever Pac he is this week. And they're all there. And you now have Sting, who's back. Sting comes out, attacks Hogan, and starting something, trying to get it going. And you can't forget the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. Now, bless his heart, Rick retired a few years ago in Orlando, Florida. Great ceremony. I was there. I watched the match between Rick and Shawn Michaels. I mean, I actually got teary-eyed watching it. And I love Rick to death personally. But I think that Rick's days in the ring are behind him. I think it is ingenious to put Rick as a mouthpiece for AJ Styles. Because Rick has that charisma. One thing that Rick has never had a problem with is talking and telling a story. See, Rick was one of those few people that could actually tell a story on the microphone. And then he stepped in the ring, and when that bell rang, he could tell you a hell of a story in between. And Flair was a master, is a master at that. I mean, come on, you can't take it away from him, because there's guys that are, half his age that couldn't do a quarter of what Rick still can do. A lot of my comment on that is, I think that Rick is just, there comes a time when you got to hang the boots up. And I know that, Rick has a hard time doing that sometimes, but at some point he's going to have to. And I say do it now. Go ahead and get behind AJ Styles in that role and make him what you were. God forbid, make him better. You never know. So anyway, you got this war. You got going head to head. 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Central on Monday nights. Competing cable companies. Well, on the WWE side, you got Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker starting things out. On the TNA side, you got Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, and Sting coming out and beating Hulk to a bloody pulp. At the end of the night, you got Vince McMahon and John Cena in an advertised match going against the advertised match of Hulk Hogan and Abyss against Ric Flair and AJ Styles. At the end of the day, the ratings showed that WWE really soundly thromped TNA. And I'm sure those in WWE are sitting up there going, yep, see, told you so. You cannot compete with us. You can't do it. Don't even try. Well, I go back September 11th, I guess 1994-ish. Maybe 93. I'm not really sure on my dates, so all you historians out there don't get upset about that. I know it was September 11th because Ric Flair was supposed to be in Stamford, Connecticut shooting a commercial for Monday Night Raw. And he no-showed because he showed up in Minneapolis, Mall of America, for Monday Nitro's first ever debut show. That time, Nitro was on the TNT network, owned by Ted Turner. They did a respectable number because Monday Night Raw that night was preempted. Well, as time went on and there were head-to-head competitions with Nitro against Raw, soundly Monday Night Raw would defeat Monday Nitro. Eric Bischoff did things like he would tell you who won in the main event long before the main event ever went on the air because Raw was taped and Nitro was live. So Eric's thinking was, hey, I'll tell you the outcome on their show because it's already been taped, but you never know what's going to happen over here on Nitro because we're live. You know, some people cried foul, some people called dirty pool. At the end of the day, man, it was pretty good business because it got people talking. It got people talking about wrestling again. It got people talking about the business. It got people excited. They were like, what is that jerk going to do this time? He was a jerk because he didn't play by the rules. But really, who made the rules? At the end of the day, who made the rules? And after all, rules are made to be broken. And Eric Bischoff did a very good job of breaking those rules. Tore down the boundaries. He said, hey, there's talent up there that's drawing. Let's go get them. He signed Kevin Nash. He signed Scott Hall. Two top stars in the WWE at the time. Had them show up on Nitro and just had people talking. What's happening? Truth be told, they still were getting beaten the ratings each week. But something else was happening each week. That beating was getting less and less each week. When we started out, it may have been a 4-1. Like it was the other night. Actually, I believe a 3-5-1. But then it became a 3.5 to a 1.5. Then a 3 to a 2. Then a 2.5 to a 2-1. Until those ratings were about neck and neck. And then the unthinkable. The almighty Hulk Hogan. Forever a good guy. Forever hero, man. Immortal. Turned his back on everything that he had stood for and became a heel. He became that dreaded bad guy. And on that date, Nitro took over Raw in the ratings and didn't look back for 18 months. And 18 months is a long time in this world, trust me. Well, Nitro, they ran that wave and they did a lot of very unconventional things that, a lot of people looked at and said, hey, that's not fair. But what is fair? And as you look at this war, it's going to be very interesting. You've got Jeff Hardy showing up. Jeff Hardy was last seen as the world champion on WWE. Hey, man, God bless him. Jeff's got a lot of issues, legal issues coming up with alleged drug dealings and things of that nature, all alleged. But he still has to face those in the courtroom and solve those issues before Jeff can be really any kind of force for TNA. But I got to give TNA credit for at least putting him on the air and giving their show that air of unpredictability. Over on the WWE side, you got Taker and Shawn. Now, what are you going to do with this? You've got The Undertaker, who is the attraction. He is the man. And you got Shawn Michaels, Mr. WrestleMania. Are they really going to end The Undertaker's undefeated streak at WrestleMania? The other side of that question, are they really Going to have Shawn Michaels retire after WrestleMania. To me, that's the beauty of a great match. That's the beauty of an attraction. It's an attraction that you can't call. It's an attraction that you sit there and you go, well, I really want this to happen. But when you think about it, I really like to see the other one as well. You can't call it. You can't feel it. You can't put your finger on it and say, yes, definitely, this is what I want to happen. So I think I've done well there. You got Edge versus Chris Jericho. Hey, man, it'll be a great, what's the guy in California, how he rates his matches? Oh, this will be a great 4-star match. Yeah, cool. I think they kind of rushed Edge's return. They rushed Edge's return, put Edge right back in the ring. Great heel. And now, because he's been out for a while, now they come back, and now he's Mr. Babyface, kissing babies and stuff. I think they would have been served better to keep Edge a heel and let him be who he is. Edge likes to be booed. I'm just not sure if those two are going to draw. But again, you've got Undertaker versus Shawn there. That's going to draw for you. The other side of that coin, you've got John Cena and Dave Bautista. It's a good story. And what I like about that story is that it's kind of an old-fashioned wrestling story. I don't like you, you don't like me, you got the title, I want it. Ah, that's simple, isn't it? You know, WrestleMania coming up should be a hell of a show. Next week, again, we've got Monday night, the Wars, one-on-one, head-to-head. I think we're looking at some very interesting months and years to come. Because I sure don't see Eric and Hogan sitting back and resting on their laurels. I see them going out to win. I see them going out to win and then maintain. I hope they've learned from past mistakes. I hope we all have. So it's going to be very interesting to see what does lie ahead for the Monday Night Wars, and in a year from now, whether we're talking about Monday Night Wars or whether we're talking about, hey, it's only TNA on Monday nights. Raw went away. Or it's only Raw on Monday nights once again. No more TNA. So it's going to be very interesting. Interesting times coming up. Just last week, I had the wonderful opportunity to travel up to Manchester, New Hampshire to perform with Mick Foley, a hardcore legend, Mick Foley. And we were up at the Palace Theater in Manchester, New Hampshire to do what is being billed as Total Extreme Comedy. Now, this is my third or fourth one that I've done with Mick, and every time that I've done it, I'm billed on with Colt Cabana. I've yet to see Colt perform. I understand he's quite funny, but I find it funny that he's yet to make any of them. But it's actually, you know, we've kind of turned it into a hell of a fun show. John Layfield and Jerry Briscoe laugh at me and say, you ain't funny. But I think we get some good laughs from our audiences that we've had. We did have a great audience, tremendous response there in Manchester, and it was a lot of fun. Got to try out a lot of new material. My Jerry Jarrett jokes, which were new. I wanted to try something a little different out. Well, they bombed. No one knew, no one cared, no one anything on the Jerry Jarrett stories. And I guess you kind of have to know Jerry Jarrett to really appreciate the idiocy, I guess, of one Mr. Jarrett. But it was a lot of fun. You know, we get up, we tell stories of the road, we tell stories of our years in the wrestling business. Do, you know, a few imitations like the Macho Man, Randy Savage. Dig it? Uh-huh. Yeah. And of course, there's the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, live and in living color, the second most recognizable athlete in the entire world. Second only to Muhammad Ali. And you know, talk about the times we spent on the road and some of the some of the funny stories that took place, and I'll share some of them as soon as I can figure out how to do it on the air without cussing, which was very tough when we appeared in Las Vegas at the Hilton. It was an all-ages show, and they told us about an hour before we were on. And I realized that every one of my stories was just laden with profanity. And I went out, and there were quite a few kids in the audience. I was kind of hoping, okay, it's an all-ages show, but who's going to bring their kid to a comedy show like this? Nobody. Come on. I asked them to turn the lights up, and oh man, there were so many kids out there, it was embarrassing. So I tried to curtail. I actually succeeded, but the trying part was a little difficult. I curtailed my cursing and didn't curse, and I had to tell the story about my kids because my language at home is atrocious, and I curse quite a bit around the house. Unfortunately, my kids will always go in, and no matter what I say, they'll go and run to their mother and say, Dad said H-E double hockey sticks. And I figured it out. It's not really that, I do cuss a lot, but the only reason they bust me for hell is because it's the only word that they can spell. So I think I'm fairly safe until they get a better spelling teacher, or their friends start writing them notes with some more descriptive vocabulary in them. But yeah, should be interesting. But the comedy's been a lot of fun. We're going to be in Phoenix on March 27th, the night before WrestleMania, at the ASU campus in one of the theaters there. You can get tickets. Check out TotalExtremeComedy.com. To get your tickets for that one. It should be a great show. Myself, Mick, and Colt Cabana, I'll believe it when I see it, we'll all be appearing there, and we really have no time limit. It's 10 o'clock show, so it'll be after all the wrestling events that night, including the Hall of Fame with the WWE, and it should be a lot of fun because we're going to have a few guest appearances from some different people, and come on in, and that should be a blast. Roddy Piper is doing a comedy stand-up a few days before that somewhere in Tempe, I believe at the Improv, and wish Roddy nothing but the best. He's a real good friend of mine, and actually one of the people at the meet and greet after our comedy session this past time in Manchester came up and was like, Bruce, why didn't you do any Roddy Piper imitations? I was, oh man, if ever there was something to talk about, with the hot rod Roddy Piper, I really screwed up. I just don't know. I forgot. Yeah, I just kind of forgot. Welcome everyone to Something to Wrestle with Bruce Prichard. I am Bruce Prichard, and you are listening to Something to Wrestle with Bruce Prichard right here on talkradio.net. And this week we're going to be talking about a lot of things. We're going to be talking about the WWE Draft. We're going to be talking about recent releases made by WWE and how that's going to affect the talent roster, not only on the WWE side, but also possibly on the TNA side. Whether or not TNA should, will, or maybe not pick up some of these wrestlers that have been released from their contracts on the WWE side. I'd like to apologize to everybody if no shows have been up. I'm somewhat electronically challenged at times, so I'm sure that's probably my fault for sending something in the wrong way or just not right enough. But hopefully we're going to get that solved, and you guys are going to be hearing from me every single week here. A lot of things that have happened in the world of wrestling. A lot of things have happened lately since, we last talked. Last time we wrapped up everything about WrestleMania. We had our post-WrestleMania show. We talked about the post-issues that were coming out of WrestleMania and kind of gave a few predictions on the draft and what may or may not happen. And since then, the draft has taken place. On the TNA side, we've got a brand new world champion in Rob Van Dam. I got to tell you, I'm happy to see that. I think Rob Van Dam will do a great job as champion as long as Rob is given the ball and let Rob go. Let Rob be Rob. Because RVD is not the kind of guy that's going to go the mainstream route and do exactly as he's told to do and say exactly as he's told to say. That's what makes Rob special. And I think that's the biggest reason that Rob can connect with his fan base and has such of a following that he has. I think Rob Van Dam being made world champion is going to be a positive in the world of TNA, in a place where recently, we haven't seen a whole lot of positives. We haven't seen a whole lot of brand new. We haven't seen a lot of guys stepping up, grabbing that brass ring. And it's nice to see, Van Dam actually get that opportunity. Looking back, again, different things that have been taking place in the world of wrestling. We had a lot of releases. Kung Fu Naki, Shelton Benjamin, big shock. Jimmy Wang Yang, Katie Lee Burchill, Mike Knox, and Mickie James, which is another big surprise because Mickie, without a doubt, probably one of the most popular females. But Mickie was one that stood out. Mickie was one that the WWE universe, or you fans, really seemed to gravitate to and like quite a bit. So it's going to be interesting whether or not TNA picks anybody up. Other interesting news, it's kind of, made the rounds in the dirt sheet. Who really knows what the truth is? A lot of speculation on good old JR, Jim Ross. It appears Jim Ross's contract with the WWE is coming to an end. That doesn't mean, of course, that Jim will be leaving WWE. WWE has been JR's home for quite a long time. But at the same time, if they can't really agree on terms, and it's going to be interesting and fun to watch to see where Jim Ross pops up. A lot of people would like to see Jim pop up at TNA and be the play-by-play man, head up on Monday nights with TNA against Raw. That could be very interesting. And Jim also, Jim has, believe it or not, Jim has other loves other than wrestling. And Jim, I think if he had an opportunity to do some other sports, in particular football, college ball, pro ball, my God, little league ball, Jim would relish that because that is a true passion of Jim. And having heard Jim do play-by-play football on the radio and also with the XFL, boy, it's a shame that he never had the opportunity to work for a network and be able to call play-by-play on professional football, because that is truly one of the best things that JR does. Also, I know Jim's interested in the MMA world, so he could possibly end up there. Or, you know what? Jim may just relax at home and sell some barbecue and continue to sell his barbecue sauce online and get a distribution for some of his products. Take life a little easy, because everybody knows that man is a hard-working man and has really been busting his butt these last few years, even through several illnesses. And wherever JR ends up, I just hope he's happy, and I hope he does very well for whoever gets him at the end. I mean, they're the ones that are going to be the winners. They truly will be. And the fans that get to enjoy JR on the backside. We will be following that and see what happens there. Monday Night Raw. I watched the draft show. In watching Raw, Raw opened up with the Miz show. I really liked the act of the Big Show and Miz as the Unified Tag Team Champions. And then out comes Bret Hart. I really didn't get Bret coming out and making fun of Big Show and Miz and talking about David Arquette. Just came out of nowhere and meant nothing. The New Hart Foundation, I guess as they're called, with Davey Boy Smith's son, David Smith, and Tyson, I guess is the other young man's name, and Natty Neidhart. Little confused, they can do some. Tyson Kidd does some great moves, and he's an energetic guy, tough kid. I think Bret's involvement there is supposed to make you care. Again, I understand putting the titles on these kids only from the standpoint of Big Show being drafted back to SmackDown. But at the same time, wouldn't it have been more interesting if you kept the titles on Show Miz and then they split up and one's in SmackDown and one's in Raw, and now you have reason to take the titles off of them and maybe have a tournament, maybe hold the titles up, maybe make a unified championship. And then from there, we're sitting there watching, and I'm watching this video on Sheamus and Triple H. And as I'm watching the video, it brought to mind the past few weeks on SmackDown and Raw last week when they had the Clippers to shave CM Punk's head. And they added the really cheesy sound effect every time it looked like or the Clippers were supposed to be on. Now, didn't matter what distance they were, the same sound. Guy's thumb would move down and do not a good job. And WWE production has usually been very good about being subtle in some of the things they do. They'll add sound effects to enhance something. But in watching this and watching the metal pipe, it felt so hokey. And it did, I hate to use this word. I hate it because I struck the word from my vocabulary. So I won't even say it. But it looked F-A-K-E. Did not look real. And it may have been very real. But the sound effect took everything away from it. Because metal doesn't clink like it does on a wall when it hits bone or leather or flesh. But the sound effects, people made it clink like you were ringing a bell. And it did not feel real at all. And it took away any emotion or any believability and credibility that they might have had with that. Didn't like it at all. Didn't think it did Hunter any favors. Didn't think it did Sheamus any favors. So then we go from there. We go to Jack Swagger, who's been beaten by everyone as the World Heavyweight Champion. And here's a kid who has real credentials. Has a lisp, which I like, because it makes him different. Swagger could be something that WWE hasn't had since Kurt Angle. A believable killer. A believable machine that can go in and beat anybody. And when someone does finally beat him, it will mean so much more. But the fact that he's already been beaten by everyone, kind of like, okay, I don't care about it. But Swagger at least finally got to got his win back on Morrison this week, and soundly, and I was happy to see that. We then see the first person in the draft. Heading on over the SmackDown, Kelly. Then we had CM Punk, who, again, I do think is probably the best heel act in the entire WWE right now. Because the straight edge society that Punk preaches is believable. Punk passionately leads this group and passionately comes at you with reasons why the straight edge society is the only way to live your life and to follow him. It makes sense. It's true, the things that Punk says, which is why people dislike him. And the fact that he looks like he hasn't taken a bath in 6 years. Love it. Great character. Great guy. It's going to go far. Had a good match with Evan Bourne. And, it was what it was, and kind of helping reestablish Punk into being a top guy and really someone you want to care about and not like very much. I've tried to watch WWE, NXT. It's, and I'm all about the new young guys, but the show is And I certainly hope some of those young guys can kick out of that, get involved with some name talent, get some time, go out and do some meaningful promos and get involved in a storyline so you can see whether or not they have the chops to do it, and get them in the mix. The only way you're really going to find out is to put them in there with the big dogs, and the big dogs are going to eat them up, or young talent's going to get something on one of those big dogs and make everybody notice. We had another draft. Big Show goes back over to SmackDown, and we go in and we see the whole Sheamus and Randy Orton, and they do their little face down. John Cena comes out, makes fun of everybody, and then the little things like Randy Orton coming out and talking about, I've done bad things to Triple H when he's talking to Sheamus, but by God, I did it face to face. But they're trying to make Randy, I guess, a big baby face and make Randy a hero, and one way to kind of go about it. Then we have another draft, and we see John Morrison going to Raw. And we see R-Truth, Edge, all going to Raw. Of course, this is the result of the Battle Royal they had in which Ted DiBiase won. But the end result, you got Morrison, Edge, and R-Truth now heading to Raw. There, Jericho Slater come out, and Jericho is to face Christian. Have another draft, Kofi going to SmackDown. You get to see Morrison get beat up by Swagger. And then you get to see Christian going to SmackDown. Again, there's not any big names here. There's not any really, oh my God, did you hear that? They did a vignette in the back, which I found interesting with the $1 Million Kid, I'll call him Ted DiBiase, with a replica of his daddy's $1 Million belt, asking Carlito to be his manservant. Then we see Chris Jericho going to Raw. Thus far, the biggest move in the draft. And we get into our Edge Orton scenario that came out of, Batista and Orton. And Sheamus for the number one contendership that John Cena made earlier. I like Edge getting involved. That was cool. Like Batista getting involved. Batista's now the number one contender according to this match. And that's all cool. I hope in future weeks that Edge being a heel again is going to breathe some new life into him. And I hope that it does something to kind of spark Randy Orton to kind of come out and really be someone to reckon with. Over on the TNA side, the biggest thing to come out of that show, I guess, was the Battle of the Rings. Here you have Ric Flair with his WWE Hall of Fame ring. You have Hulk Hogan with his WWE Hall of Fame ring. But Hulk Hogan gave his to Abyss. And Ric Flair wants it for some reason. Why, I don't know. But Ric Flair wanted Hulk Hogan's Hall of Fame ring from Abyss. So Ric Flair put his ring on the line against Abyss's Hulk Hogan ring. That gets confusing. Have the match, and I love Ric Flair to death. Boy, it's kind of, after 40 years, the act is getting a little stale. Rick bleeds great. That's all we have seen of Rick at TNA thus far, is a lot of bleeding. And we haven't seen the greatness of Ric Flair. And, to have some guy stand on Rick's head while Hulk Hogan struggles to take his WWE Hall of Fame ring off, I gotta tell you, I was just laughing. It felt silly to me. It felt insignificant and silly. If you're trying to build TNA, and you're trying to build a new company around new stars,
Why are you having your two oldest stars fight over something they got from another company? I just don't know, what they're trying to do here and who they're trying to build. Because the younger talent's matched up with the younger talent, the older talent's matched up with the older talent, and it feels like rehash, and unfortunately not a lot of freshness coming into the mix there in TNA. And then you get to a big announcement by Eric Bischoff, and his big announcement is that you, the fans, are going to decide who gets a world title shot. Well, said in there, so I'm not taking shots here. Go to TNAWrestling.com and vote for the person that you feel is most deserving to get a world title shot. And I did that. I went to the website to check it out, and you only get a choice of 10 people that they have pre-chosen to vote from. And it's very interesting because Desmond Wolfe is by far the biggest contender on votes, followed by Jeff Hardy. The more interesting thing to me was the smallest vote getters, which were Abyss, the guy who now has 2 Hall of Fame rings from the WWE, one from Ric Flair, one from Hulk Hogan, and Jeff Jarrett. And if nothing else, don't say, okay, go on and pick whoever you want from the roster for a title shot, because you don't have the ability to choose anyone from the roster. But I hope that TNA is looking at this as an indication as to where the fans are looking and who they're looking at, who they really like. Because at the end of the day, most of these polls are simply a popularity contest. They're a popularity contest of the guys that they like best and the guys that they want to see more of. And it also tells you something else. It tells you the talent that they don't care about and the talent that they want to see less of because they're not voting for, they're not interested in it. So that was a little shocking to me. I would have thought Jeff Hardy would have been in the lead by far, and I know in reading the internet reports, I think they felt that Mr. Anderson and some other people would have been up there even more. And I like Mr. Anderson. I think that he's going to be a star. I think he's going to find himself there in TNA and do good. And I hope he does, because he's a hard-working guy, and he's got a really good shtick. But we shall see. We'll see what happens. But TNA, I just think that TNA really needs to start developing new talent at the expense of and sacrifice of some of the older talent, some of the talent that has been there a long time, and some of the talent that can no longer hang night in, night out, and not make the house shows, and on television, get these younger guys over. Make them mean something. Some of the younger talent, never going to make it. He's different, but I don't think he's won a match since he's been in TNA. So, got a lot of work to do. The supplemental draft takes place this week, and you can check that out on the various websites and see who lands where and who does what. But over the next few weeks, we're going to be kind of pairing up new pairings in WWE, see who's going to end up with who, and we'll be analyzing that each and every week as we get back in the swing, and I promise you, we're going to be here each and every week. I'm Bruce Prichard. This is Something to Wrestle With. We'll see you next week.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Something to Wrestle with Bruce Prichard. It has been a big week in the wrestling world, especially in the World Wrestling Entertainment universe. They call it the WWE Universe, with WrestleMania taking place. And this week's show, we're going to talk about the entire card. We're going to talk about WrestleMania and pretty much my thoughts and the observations that many people made about WrestleMania this past year. And tell you what I think about what they did and their plans for the future. WrestleMania 26, a huge event, and on paper looked like it was possibly going to be one of the best WrestleManias of all time. Without doubt, had the main event, the big ticket seller, I would have to say that the single main attraction of the entire event being The Undertaker with his undefeated streak at stake against the main event, the showstopper, the one and only Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. With Shawn's career on the line. Stipulation being that if Shawn lost, Shawn would retire. We'll get to that a little bit later on. But first, I'd like to just kind of talk about the card overall, the overall presentation of WrestleMania 26. I sat back and I tried to watch it objectively. I tried to just kind of watch it as a fan because I, frankly, was quite excited. I was really looking forward to seeing what the WWE was going to do on their biggest day of the year, the biggest card of the year, Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels. Those guys delivered. The emotion, the passion that was in that match, it came through, and that match truly delivered. Kind of go down the card. I was so compelled and so moved by the event and the emotion I felt from it. Sent off an email to some folks up there at WWE. You knew when they spoke. JR is probably the best play-by-play man that's ever been in the business, sans Gordon Soley. But JR told a story. JR had passion. But he also had a very distinguishable accent. He had a distinguishable voice. There was no mistaking. Good old JR was talking to you. You knew it was going to be JR. And then Taz with his New York accent. I can't do New York very well, so I won't even try. Then, of course, Bradshaw with his loud, boisterous Texas accent. You could tell you didn't have to see them to know who was speaking. A story told in play-by-play and in commentary can certainly enhance a match. I'm sorry, I left out Jerry Lawler. Jerry was in there, too. From there we go, Triple H and Sheamus. Now, again, I'm glad to see Sheamus in a match at WrestleMania. Thought Sheamus did a good job with Triple H. I thought Triple H did a good job in not guzzling and beating the hell out of Sheamus. I think Triple H did his best there that he could do to make Sheamus look good, and I think Sheamus did everything within his power to make himself look good. Let's see. Next, we had Rey Mysterio and CM Punk. CM Punk, one of my favorite characters on the shows right now. I love his character, man. I love the straight edge gimmick. It's entertaining. I think he does it well. There's a reason he does it well, because he believes it. And then you got Rey Mysterio. How can you not like Ray? Ray's a tremendous talent. But these guys just went out and didn't have enough time to tell a story. Didn't tell a story. It was kind of a high spot fest. So from there, Vince McMahon, chairman of WWE, against Bret Hart. In Bret Hart's day, nobody could touch Bret. Bret was a great talent. Bret would work so hard, and Bret would continue to work until he got that crowd. Bret would work until he got you. And he got you by telling a story in the ring. And he got you by being emotionally in that match. Vince, on the other hand, is arguably the greatest heel the business has ever seen. And Vince doesn't argue to be the world's greatest worker. So on the outside, you have three young people that can actually do physicality and can do things, and Harry Smith and TJ and Natalie, with 60-year-old Hart surrounding the ring who can't do anything. In the ring, you got a 54-year-old Bret who suffered a stroke and hasn't been in the ring since. And Bret really can't do anything. now you've got Bret Hart in with the chairman, while his wife is running for Senate in Connecticut, taking chair shots. Some to the back of the head, to his back, all over his body. And they were brutal chair shots. The only emotion I could really elicit was relief when this thing was finally over. Follow that up with a world title match with Edge and Chris Jericho. Again, I thought the guys had a good match. Jericho defeated Edge. He kept the title. And Edge coming back, I don't think that Edge really needs a title right now. Let him run for a little while. Edge is fresh back from an injury. And let him get well, let him get his ring rust off and get back in the groove. Cena Batista came out, and I thought they had a pretty good match, really. I love Batista in his new role as a heel. I think Batista's a very believable, mean, nasty heel. And I think it comes across that Dave genuinely doesn't like, he doesn't like the crowd, man. He doesn't like the fans. That's easy for Dave to do because he's really a shy guy deep down, and I think Dave plays that role to perfection. John Cena winning the title, a great WrestleMania moment for John. I just don't think John Cena needs the World Championship or WWE Championship, whatever we're calling that one. I think John Cena's a star enough on his own, and it just kind of felt unnecessary. I think that it would have done a lot more to have Batista defeat Cena and Batista continue to reign and kind of shove that title up everyone's butt for a little while longer. So now, we've got the main event, the match everybody was waiting for, Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker. I loved the simplicity of the entrances in a lot of ways, man. And to see those two guys, both of whom started shortly after I did. I've been with both of them through their entire career. It was a joy to watch. It's very emotional to watch. I didn't want Undertaker to have his streak ended, and I certainly never wanted Shawn to retire. The outcome being Undertaker beating Shawn, I think was the right one. Again, selfishly, I didn't want his career, Undertaker's streak to end. And, I think Shawn's kind of ready to hang it up for a little while. Head on back to the ranch and be with his kids and his wife and chill out. He certainly deserves it. And that, it's one time when you get to see a great match, great outcome. It was perfectly done with no music at the end after Undertaker left and Shawn walking out with no music. I thought was a great send-off. So, the high point of the night, at least it was in the right place. Thank God they didn't put that thing on earlier because no one could have followed it. And, there's not much you can really say about it other than that was a great match. Now, for those watching at home, I got to tell you the biggest pop of the entire evening in my house was as Shawn waved goodbye at the top of the ramp. An advertisement came up for Howard Stern porn. And all kinds of great names for the different porn selections that were coming up on demand on your cable system. And it went on for about 30 seconds, and then they cut back to an outside shot of the Arizona Stadium, and then cut quickly to generic cable commercials. So I thought the porn was strategically placed. That was very interesting in my house, and everybody got a big kick out of that, even the kids not even having a clue what the hell they were reading. Great finish at the end with Taker and Shawn. Hats off to them. Nothing bad to say about that. So that's my WrestleMania review, and next week we'll be talking about kind of the wrestling business overall. Talk about TNA, and I'm not really quite sure exactly what the hell they're doing, but we'll talk about it a little bit. And the future direction of WWE from the post WrestleMania week matches and shows, and kind of give our predictions moving forward. And you guys have a good one. And I'm Bruce Prichard, and this is Something to Wrestle with. Bruce Prichard.
All right, boys and girls, that's going to wrap us up. I apologize for having to call an audible today. Of course, this wasn't our original plan. We wanted to do In Your House 4, but, well, didn't work out. Thoughts and prayers for the Prichard family. Hope we get to sit down and catch up with Bruce this weekend and knock out In Your House 4. Of course, if we do, it'll go up early and ad-free over at adfreeshows.com. You get all these shows early and ad-free, all 5 of my podcasts, plus lots of other cool bonus content, including video, not just regular video, 4K video. It's going to matter for some of this fun stuff like the old belt series. Either way, man, we're excited to catch up with you. So excited about what November holds for adfreeshows.com. Hope you'll check us out on In Your House 4 here in a couple of days. Next week, man, we're kicking it old school. Taboo Tuesday 2005. That seems like an idea they could dust off right now. We'll see what happens right here, real soon, on Something to Wrestle with, hopefully, Bruce Prichard. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.